Well, welcome to this video on making Airfix's HMS Victory model. This is a popular model that's been around for a long time. It does present some challenges getting some of the pieces to fit and problems with flash, which I'll talk about in a moment. But the popularity of the model means there's also plenty of aftermarket items that you can use to enhance your model, and we'll be looking at some of those as well. Now these include photo-etched pieces like these. This is what's known as hammock netting. It runs along both sides of the deck, and the hammocks would be stuffed into this netting to provide extra protection during fighting. And the shrouds, this is the rigging that the sailors would go up to release the sails and then pull the sails back in. Under this video I'm going to include websites where you can buy these aftermarket items, plus a great YouTube video where a person goes along the deck of the actual Victory, which I found really helpful for working out where everything goes. These are things like what's called the Marine Walk, the Victory name, things like that. Now I won't be using all of these photo-etched pieces on the model, but I'll be using quite a few of them. Also be using some 3D printed items such as these. Now flash is the plastic that seeps out during the molding process, and you need to cut away all of the flash using a knife or a file. Here's some flash here, big dollop of it, and also it's surrounding most of the prongs on this piece of the model. There's some of it there, and by contrast we can see how this final prong is clear of flash on the far right. The first thing I do is paint all the parts with primer. So I start the model by making the stand. And painting it just with straightforward Tamiya black paint from a spray can. In terms of painting the sides of the hull, I've used a colour which I think most approximates the colouring which is regarded these days as the actual colouring in Nelson's day. I refer to this colour as terracotta. The bright yellow that we associate with the Victory is now not seen as being the actual colour scheme during the Trafalgar battle. So that goes on first. I'm airbrushing on here black, having masked off the parts that will remain the terracotta colour, of course. And I used this brown, TS1 red brown from the Tamiya range, just as a spray paint for the bottom of the hull. And now I'm peeling off the masking tape to reveal black and terracotta colouring, which I'll subsequently touch up just with a bit of brush painting. There are the two halves of the hull. Then I use this AS15 tan colour from the Tamiya range to paint the decks. And the panel line accent colour just to bring up some of the detail on the decks. And then I mask off where I want some nice straight lines and just brush the details there on the deck. paint the gun ports. They're black with a red surround, and the gun port lids, the little covers, which I paint red. Put the two halves of the hull together with the bottom deck. That's the lower of the two decks that you get with the model. And then added the other pieces and then put on the top deck. And then painted the gallery and other bits and pieces which also are attached to the hull. It's the same colour, the flesh colour, or what I call terracotta. And I paint the back of the gallery black and use the accent colour again from the Tamiya range to give a sense of the glass windows there. Quite a bit of holding and quite a few rubber bands to hold the hull together while it dried, but I used super glue when we got there. So now is the first photo etch part. I'm cutting out the Victory name, which goes on the stern of the ship. I sandpapered away the original name that was there. Just continuing to add pieces to the deck. There's the bell going on. And this is the two 3D printed pieces. Strictly speaking, there's actually three pieces. One of them you cut in two, the one on the left you cut in two. And these are kevels, which are little wooden towers that go on the deck as well for holding ropes. And now I am cutting out of the photo etched fret the belaying pin rails. I actually leave some of the outside of the fret attached to the photo etched piece, because I find that this makes it easier to attach the piece to the model. I'll show you what I mean in more detail in a moment. So I'm putting the belaying pin rail into the vise, bending it to shape. So there is the belaying pin rail, and there is the piece of the fret at right angles to it, which I'll attach to the side of the hull. And now I'm cutting out the Skylight out of the photo etched fret as well. And I'm filing off the burrs, the little pieces of the fret that are attached to the piece itself. And I'm bending part of the Skylight into shape. And I have to remove the little mount that exists on the poop deck where the plastic skylight, the skylight that comes with the Airfix model, would go. So I just cut that out, remove it, tidy it up with a bit of filing, and put in some just plastic, clear plastic. And there it is. There's the flagpole as well, for what it's worth. And I've also Just a little bit of extra plastic there as support for the flagpole, as per the actual ship. Doesn't come with the Airfix model. Now I'm putting on these pieces of wood which surround the flagpole. That's parts 97 and 98 on the model. And I'm making the flag lockers. Again, they're part of the photo-etched material. These sit at the stern of the ship. Bit of extra detail, which are nice. There they are, there's two of them. Painted brown. And you have to put the little bits of wood as if they're going through them. I put an extra piece of plastic at the back of the flag locker and then attach the wood. There's a split. I'll show you what I mean in a moment. You'll see when it turns over. I'll just split it in two. The wood is parts 95 and 96. So there's the flag lockers in place. There's the skylight. There's the 4 belaying pin rails. There's an extra 3D printed piece that goes on. Here are the other 2 3D printed pieces. And there is one of the kevels. You get 10, which you place along both sides of the deck. Put the archways over the doorways of the ship, either side. And put the stand on. Now, with the benefit of hindsight, I should have put the cannons in first before putting on the top deck, as per the instructions. I thought it'd be safer to put them on afterwards to stop them getting knocked, but it actually means placing them. It's quite awkward. Particularly the ones here, which are nearest to the bow, to the front of the ship. So, if I were you, I would definitely follow the instructions and put these little cannons in before putting on the top deck. I managed to fix it all and get them in place, but it was needlessly difficult because of my error. I've also used some photo etch from white inside models. It's actually from a German ship, but I will use some of the railing here for extra detail on the deck. Here's a little piece trimmed, and I'm just using some photo etch scissors here to get it nice and tidy. And there you can see some of the photo etch railing which I've cut and bent and put around there. And I'm just about to attach another along here. I've used super glue on a brush, but in fact PVA works just as well. The masking tape there is just to protect the cannons. There it goes. The 2 rowboats I made separately. They're quite straightforward. The only thing I would say is that make sure your oars are the right way up. You can see the detail there. The other side of the oars is just blank, so that's clearly the undetailed part. And here's something else that is interesting. There's the possibility of putting ropes on for the bowsprit. There's no directions to do this in the instructions, but you can certainly do it. I just got a couple of shoelaces to do the job. So there are 2 slots in the bow. You just simply thread the shoelace through the slot. Cut off the end of it and glued it through there in that slot. One's already done. This is the second one, just to show you. It goes through the hole there, draw it through, make a loop, put it back. You just take it down, leave a reasonably sized loop, and after you put the bowsprit in, you can glue the lace just where the slot is and trim it off. Here is the bowsprit with another photo etched piece, the marine walk, just sitting in there ready. There's the two grooves that fit the rope here. So we put the bowsprit in, pull them nice and tight, and as I say, you just cut them along the slot on the front of the bow there. The marine walk goes in nicely, slots in, and there you have it. These are the holes for the anchor rope. That little flat section points to the outside of the hull. This little raised section points to the keel, to the bottom of the hull. Put a little knot in the rope, put the other end through. It's just a piece of twine to simulate a large rope for anchors. Make sure it doesn't go through the hole. The knot's inside the hole, and I glued it in place. In fact, with the benefit of hindsight, I could have left the anchor holes off until much later in the build, and therefore not have to contend with the twine. Now this is some hammock netting for the bow, and I've left these little stubs on from the fret, and I use those to attach this photo etch part to the bow ornamentation here. You can see them attached. That little semicircle that you can see, a black rod goes through there for the rigging. But you can see where those little stubs there I've glued on, and you can paint them to hide it. Be aware that the bow hammock netting is on the photo etched fret of general parts for the Victory, not on the photo etched fret of specifically hammock netting. And this is quite a tricky piece too. It's a little spar, there's two of them on the bow, and the black section that we see at the top there attaches to the hull pointing backwards, and the brown part points outwards away from the ship. You can see it being attached there. And incidentally, there's that black rod pointing through the semicircle on the hammock netting. So that concludes part 1. I hope you found that useful and interesting. In part 2, we'll be looking at attaching the rest of the hammock netting, building the masts, and attaching the shrouds. See you there. Bye.